After the carving appeared, nothing at Heartland felt the same. Every corner of the ranch seemed to hum with a strange, quiet energy. Amy tried to go about her day as usual, but her thoughts kept circling back to that small wooden horse. Hands remembered the shape of it, her heart remembered the man who carved it, and her mind refused to let the feeling go. Something was calling her. That night, Amy couldn't sleep. She stood by her window watching the moon spill silver light over the fields. The horses shifted softly in the dark, restless but calm, as if waiting for something too. Amy felt an urge she couldn't explain, an urge to follow the truth, wherever it led. She grabbed her jacket, slipped on her boots, and stepped outside into the cool night air. Her feet carried her toward the old trail Ty used to ride. A trail that held years of laughter, arguments, healing moments, and secrets only the two of them shared. As she walked deeper into the trees, memories rose like ghosts around her Ty, riding Spartan. Ty smiling at her from across a meadow. Ty promising her that no matter what happened, they would always find their way back to each other. Branches whispered overhead as the wind picked up, cold and sharp. The sky darkened with thick clouds rolling in, turning the world quiet and heavy. The air felt alive, almost electric. Amy's pulse quickened. She had no idea what she was searching for, but something inside her insisted she wasn't searching. In vain, halfway up the trail, Amy stopped. The storm clouds pressed low, swallowing the last light. A sudden gust of wind rattled the leaves, making Amy turn sharply. She wasn't alone. No figure stood behind her. No voice called her name. Yet, she felt it, a presence. A weight. A warmth she hadn't felt in years. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she scanned the trees. Nothing moved, yet everything felt different. She didn't know whether to be afraid or hopeful. Maybe both. Then, she saw a footprint in the soft dirt of the trail. Fresh, deep, too large to be Lindy's. Too heavy to be from any of the ranch horses, too new to be from last week's riders. Amy knelt beside it, her breath catching. It was the kind of footprint a man would leave. A man walking alone, a man carrying something heavy on his shoulders, a man who knew this trail. Thunder rumbled far away, rolling through the clouds like a warning, or a promise. Amy stood slowly, her hands trembling. The wind blew again, carrying a scent that nearly brought her to her knees. Pine, earth, and something warm, something familiar, something she had tried so hard to forget because remembering hurt too much. She whispered his name, barely a breath. Ty. The forest didn't answer, but the silence felt full alive, like the air right before a miracle happens. Amy turned toward the deeper part of the trail. Her fear faded. Her hope burned bright. Someone had been here. Someone who knew this place. Someone she once loved more than life itself. And she wasn't going to stop until she found the truth. The sky broke open with a soft rain as Amy followed the trail deeper into the woods. Each step felt heavier, as if the air itself was thick. With memory, storm clouds hung low, filtering the world into shades of gray and silver. Trees stood tall around her, silent watchers of a moment years in the making. Amy felt her heartbeat pounding in her throat, her breath shaking with every inhale. Then the forest grew unnaturally still. No wind, no rustling branches, no distant animal sounds, just silence, sharp and deep, like the world had stopped breathing. Amy stepped into a small clearing, her boots sinking gently into the damp earth. She turned slowly, scanning the shadows. She wasn't sure what she expected. A voice, a clue, maybe another wooden carving. But what she saw instead made her entire body turn cold. At the far edge of the clearing, half hidden by the trees, stood a figure. He didn't move at first. He only watched her, his outline soft behind the curtain of rain. Amy froze. Her hands shook. Her breath caught painfully in her chest. Something inside her whispered his name before her mind could catch up. The figure took one step forward. Amy's knees almost buckled. The walk, the shoulders, the quiet way he carried his weight, it was him. It had to be. But her mind screamed that it was impossible. Impossible for him to be alive. Possible for him to be standing there, as real as the trees behind him. Another step. Now she could see his face wet from the rain, older than she remembered, tired in ways she didn't understand. But unmistakably, undeniably Ty Borden. His eyes were the same soft brown she used to lose herself in. His expression held fear, hope, and a love that had survived the impossible. Amy's lips parted, but no words came out. Tears blurred her vision, and her breath broke into sharp, uneven pieces. She took a step toward him, afraid to move too fast, afraid he might disappear like a ghost if she blinked. Ty swallowed hard, his voice quiet, rough, and filled with years of silence. "Amy, I'm here." The sound of his voice tore through her like lightning. She covered her mouth with her trembling hand, tears spilling freely down her face. For a moment, neither of them moved. They simply stared at each other, two souls who had been torn apart, now pulled back together by something stronger than time or loss. Finally, Amy ran to him. Ty opened his arms, as if he had been waiting for that moment since the day he vanished. When she reached him, she fell against his chest, clutching him with a desperate force, afraid he might fade away if she let go. Ty held her tightly, burying his face in her hair, breathing her in like she was the first breath of life he'd taken in years. Rain poured around them, but neither felt it. The world had narrowed to this single moment, raw, fragile, unbelievable, painfully real. Amy could barely speak through her sobs. "Ty? How are you here?" Ty closed his eyes. His voice broke as he whispered, "I came home. Finally came home." And in the silent, trembling heart of that clearing, nothing else mattered. The impossible had happened. The story that should have ended long ago had just opened its next chapter. For a long moment, Amy and Ty stayed locked in their embrace, as if holding each other was the only way to keep this moment real. But slowly, gently, Amy pulled back just enough to see his face. His eyes were filled with something she had never seen in him before, pain mixed with years of heavy secrets. She touched his cheek, her fingers tracing the lines time had carved there. "Ty," she whispered, "why didn't you come home? Why didn't you tell me you were alive?" Ty looked down, his breath shaky. He seemed to struggle for the right words, but there were none that could soften the truth. "I wanted to," he said quietly. "Every single day I wanted to. But I couldn't. It wasn't safe. Not for me. Not for you. Not for Lindy." Amy's heart clenched. She stepped back slightly, giving him space, her eyes never leaving him. Ty ran a hand through his wet hair and let out a long, broken breath. "The day I got sick wasn't just an infection that nearly took my life. There was more behind it, something I didn't understand at the time." His voice cracked, and Amy felt her stomach twist. "Someone wanted to hurt me. Someone connected to the case I worked on years ago. When I survived, the danger didn't." And he told her everything slowly, painfully. How he woke up in a secure facility, guarded, monitored. How he wasn't allowed to call or write, because any sign he was alive could put Amy and Lindy at risk. How he moved from place to place under new identities, always followed, always watched. How he spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if Amy still believed in him, or if she had learned to live without him. Amy felt tears spill down her cheeks again, but this time they weren't from shock. They were from the unbearable weight of what Ty had carried alone. "Why didn't anyone tell us?" she demanded, her voice cracking. Ty shook his head. "They couldn't. It was too dangerous. The only way to protect you was to disappear completely." Amy covered her mouth, trying to steady her breathing. Ty stepped closer and gently held her hands, his touch soft but full of desperation. "I never stopped fighting to get back to you," he said. "Even when they said it might never be safe, I refused to believe it. I promised myself that no matter how long it took, I would come home." "And now?" Amy whispered. "Now," Ty said, "the danger is finally gone. The people who hunted me, they're gone. I'm free. And the first place I ran to was you." Amy's tears turned into quiet sobs as she wrapped her arms around him again. Ty lifted his face toward the sky, letting the rain wash over him like a blessing. For the first time in years, he wasn't hiding. He wasn't running, was home. When they finally pulled apart, Ty glanced toward the distant lights of Heartland Ranch. Does she? He hesitated, his voice trembling. Does Lindy remember me? Amy smiled, a small, broken, beautiful smile. She remembers you in every story I told her, and now she'll have you in real life. Emotion tightening. His throat. I'm ready, he whispered. I want to meet my daughter. Amy took his hand, and together, step by step, they walked out of the forest toward Heartland, toward Lindy, toward a future that had once seemed impossible. The past had finally let him go. The present had finally brought him home, and the future was just beginning. Something unbelievable is about to happen at Heartland, something no one ever expected again. After years of silence, after endless nights of holding on to a hope that slowly slipped away, a single moment is about to change Amy Fleming's life forever. 'Cause today, a sign appears, one that whispers the impossible. Ty Borden might still be alive. The sun slowly rises over Heartland Ranch, painting the sky with soft gold and pale pink. Horses run across the open fields, their hooves thundering quietly like distant memories. The ranch looks peaceful, almost untouched by time, yet something feels different this morning. There is a heaviness in the air, a feeling that the past is about to reach out and touch the present. Amy stands outside the barn, brushing a horse with slow, steady movements. Her face is calm, but her eyes tell a different story. They hold years of hurt, strength, and unspoken longing. After losing Ty, she learned to move forward. She learned to smile again for Lindy, for her family, and for the ranch. But deep inside, a quiet ache remained an ache. She never allowed herself to speak. Aloud as the wind blows gently across the yard, Amy pauses. Something about the morning feels familiar, almost like a memory calling her name. She looks toward the distant hills, the same place where she once rode beside Ty, laughing with him, dreaming with him, living a life she thought would last forever. The camera lingers on Heartland, the barn, the jumping arena, the house Jack built with his bare hands. Every corner holds pieces of Ty's life. His saddle still hangs on the barn wall. His old jacket remains folded in a drawer that Amy has never fully emptied. Even the horses seem to sense it, the silent echo of someone who once lived among them with so much heart. The world around Amy grows quiet. Only the soft breathing of the horse and the gentle sound of the wind can be heard. It is as if the ranch itself is holding its breath, waiting for something it can feel but cannot see. Amy closes her eyes for a moment, letting herself feel the morning air. She doesn't know why her heart is beating faster or why a strange warmth is spreading through her chest. All she knows is that today feels different. Just a feeling small, fragile, but impossible to ignore. A feeling that whispers through the quiet ranch. Something is coming. And deep inside, Amy feels the faint spark of a hope she buried long ago, slowly beginning to rise again. For years, the world believed Ty Borden was gone. Corner of Heartland. His story simply took a turn, hidden from the world, buried under danger, secrets, and a fight for survival. Far from the ranch, Ty had been caught in something he never chose. Everything he loved. He was placed under protection, moved from location to location, unable to reach out, unable to send a message. Every day he woke up thinking of Amy, of Lindy, of the family he longed to return to. But danger kept him caged, like a shadow following every step he took. Meanwhile, back at Heartland, Amy worked hard to rebuild her life. She poured her heart into healing horses, trying to fill the space Ty once held. At night, she would sit on the porch with a blanket around her shoulders, staring at the stars and wondering if Ty could somehow see the same sky. When Amy felt strong, and moments when grief pulled her under like a stormy river, but she never let that storm drown her completely. Jack watched quietly, supporting Amy with the steady strength only he could give. Lou checked in every morning, wanting to make sure her sister wasn't carrying too much alone. Tim tried to distract Amy with work and plans, though he never said aloud how worried he was. Life continued, slowly, painfully, almost peacefully. But the emptiness never really left. Still, through every season, spring rains, Summer sun, autumn winds, winter snow. Amy kept moving, kept living, kept healing. She didn't know why, but somewhere deep inside her heart, a small, stubborn light refused to go out. A part of her kept believing that Ty's story wasn't finished, that maybe, someday, something would change. Now, years later, the quiet truth begins to rise. The world had moved on, but Ty never forgot. He never stopped fighting his way back. The road that kept him away for so long was finally beginning to lead him home. The days leading up to Ty's return looked ordinary on the surface, but something inside Amy had begun to shift quietly, like a soft tremor beneath the earth. Heartland moved through its familiar rhythm. Horses to train, chores to finish, lessons to teach. Yet Amy felt a strange pull in the air, almost like a whisper brushing the edge of her thoughts. Most mornings, she found herself standing by the paddock fence, watching the horses run. She didn't know why she lingered there longer than usual. Maybe it was the way the early light stretched across the fields, reminding her of old rides with Ty. Maybe it was the wind, carrying a scent she hadn't noticed in years, pine mixed with something warm and familiar, something she couldn't name. Lindy had grown into a bright, curious child, full of energy and big dreams. Lately, she had been asking questions again. Questions Amy found hard to answer. "Mommy, do you think Dad would like my drawings? Would he ride with me if he was here? Do you miss him too?" Amy always answered with a smile, but behind that smile lived a quiet ache. She tried to stay strong, to be the mother Lindy deserved, the trainer Heartland needed, the daughter Jack worried about. But some nights when the house was silent and Lindy was asleep, Amy would sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea that always grew cold too fast. She would stare at the door, as if waiting for footsteps that would never come. Jack noticed, though he never pushed. He would simply sit beside her on the porch, offering nothing but his presence. "You're doing good, Amy," he said once, in that gentle voice that held years of wisdom. Amy nodded, though she felt the weight growing heavier across her shoulders. Work helped. Helping troubled horses helped. But even in the arena, she caught herself drifting. A horse would flick its ears or step sideways in a way Ty used to describe, and Amy's heart would jump. She would turn around, half expecting him to be there smiling, teasing her, holding the world steady the way he always did. But there was always empty air. Still on one particular morning, cloudy, cool. And strangely, still Amy felt something unusual break through the quiet. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't a sight. It was a feeling. Sharp and sudden, like a spark lighting inside her chest. A feeling that made her pause mid-step, her breath catching without warning. For the first time in years, Amy felt hope rise, not the soft, tired hope she carried for Lindy's sake. This was different, stronger. Alive, she didn't understand it yet, but the world around her had already begun to change. Something was moving toward Heartland, something she had never dared to imagine again, and somewhere far beyond the fields and hills, a man who once held her heart was finally finding his way home. It happened on a quiet afternoon. It's a kind of afternoon where nothing unusual ever seemed to happen at Heartland. The sky hung low with soft gray clouds, and a gentle breeze carried the smell of rain across the yard. Amy was finishing up in the barn, brushing down a young horse that had finally learned to trust her. Everything felt calm, normal, predictable. Then, without warning, the moment arrived, the moment that changed everything, as Amy stepped outside. She noticed a small object sitting on the fence post, something she was sure hadn't been there earlier. It was a wooden carving, smooth and familiar, the edges worn down just enough to show it had been held many times. Her breath caught as she picked it up. The shape was unmistakable. A tiny horse, carved in the exact style Ty used to make when he needed to calm his hands or clear his thoughts. Her fingers trembled as she turned it over. There, on the underside, was a mark she knew by heart, a tiny nick from a carving knife Ty once told her he slipped with years ago. No one else knew about that. No one else could have made this. The carving felt warm in her palm, as if carried a long distance. As if placed on that fence post only moments before she found it, Amy's heart pounded. Her mind searched for logic. Maybe someone found an old carving of ties and left it here by mistake. Maybe it had been hidden somewhere in the barn and someone simply moved it. But deep inside, she knew this wasn't an accident. This carving didn't feel like a memory returning. It felt like a message. A message from someone who had once carved pieces of his heart into wood. Jack noticed Amy standing still as stone and walked over. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly. Amy handed him the carving. When Jack saw it, the look in his eyes changed. A mix of shock and something close to fear. "Where did you get this?" "It was right here," Amy whispered. "On the fence." Jack didn't say it aloud. She could see the question forming in his mind. The same dangerous question forming in hers. Could Ty be alive? Lou joined them moments later, confused by the tension. Tim stood in the doorway of the barn, arms crossed, watching carefully. Each of them examined the carving, but no one could explain it. No footprints, no signs of anyone visiting, no trucks on the road, just this small wooden horse.